Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. We are going to talk about conversational collaboration. This is the term we use to describe the entirety of our methodology for launching positive conversational experiences. We will summarize it through 5 key principles and provide practical tools along the way that you can use with your organization. But before we do that, quick intros. Hello, I am Maika. I am the Chief Design Officer at Open Dialogue. Before joining Open Dialogue, I was a user experience consultant with major brands, agencies, and startups. I am also the co-author of the Voice UX workbook and currently working on a new book about conversational UX. In addition, I was recently named an Alexa champion.
And hi, everyone. I'm Ronald. I'm the founder and CEO of Open Dialogue. My background is in artificial intelligence. I spent a few years in academia studying things like knowledge management and semantic web technologies and something a bit more obscure called agent-based software engineering. My conversational AI journey started in 2017 when we launched a company called Greenshoot Labs, which is a consultancy for conversational AI. And it's through that company that we started working on what is now the Open Dialogue framework. Somewhere along that path, I also wrote a book called The AI-Powered Workplace, which focuses on how conversational interfaces can help us to automate processes and improve collaboration. Now, you may have heard of Open Dialogue as the conversational platform that does things differently. It's all true. We introduce a unique model that views conversations as a collaboration between the user and the application to achieve a goal within a specific context. The Open Dialogue conversation model, our no-code designer, and the underlying conversation engine are all there to enable you to design and deploy sophisticated and scalable experiences. If you're curious, head over to opendialogue.ai to sign up and try things out for yourself. Now, over to Maika to get us going.
So first, let's talk about what do we mean by positive conversational experiences. These are experiences that delight the user by helping them solve a real problem in the best possible way, but also delight the organization that launched the experience in the first place. By now, there have been many talks about nightmare chatbot experiences, horror stories of all kinds about the customers that felt disappointed, about the businesses that felt cheated by the promise of AI technologies, and bots that are nowhere to be found anymore. The blame, more often than not, for those experiences is laid squarely at the feet of underlying technologies. But while the right technology is a crucial ingredient, it's not the only one. The somewhat painful truth, and we must admit, is that inefficient organizational communication has most often already sidetracked a conversational application from its orbit before 1 ounce of fueling technology has been implemented. The organization as a whole needs to embrace the conversational way of doing things. It needs to build its capability to design and deploy experiences that are conversational. This is what conversational collaboration is all about. Leveraging the power of conversations, of efficient human conversations, to build robust conversational applications that stand the test of time. So you're probably thinking, oh, well, that's easier said than done. So that's why we've broken it down to 5 key principles to get you going. Let's start with principle number 1, intent identification and interpretation. I already hear you thinking, oh, well, she's going to talk to us about NLU, but we're not talking about natural language understanding just yet. We mean that first, you need to identify the needs of the stakeholders behind the conversational application. What are the drivers behind this conversational experience need? What are the metrics that stakeholders are focused on? What is going on in their heads? And what are the ones that they should be focusing on explicitly? Once we've identified that, they need to be interpreted. What do they really mean? How do they actually connect up to a wider business strategy? Do they actually connect up to a wider business strategy? Multiple questions or multiple whys need to be asked until we get to what is the core of the matter. The same thing needs to happen on the end user side of things. We need to know what they are after. Is it really a conversational application that is the best way to achieve that? User research is really a key strategy to ensure conversational success. And we all probably have heard this before, and everyone in the room probably knows this, but it's good to remind ourselves that upfront research should be top of mind before even sketching out a single conversation. Now, that is all well and nice, but like, how can we practically achieve and describe this conversational collaboration between stakeholders, conversational application creators, and users? So we actually use a tool that is called the use case validation template. It is a canvas that lays out findings from both user research and stakeholder interviews in a clean-cut way. And it will help you reflect on bringing both parties' goals together into a single high-level scenario for your conversational application. It really puts to light what each party wants and needs and how those two things can come together. So if you want to get your own copy of the use case validation template that we use, you can do so by going to the link that is written on the slides. It's opendialogue.ai/use case validation template.
Great. Now let's move on to the second principle, creating the right space for your project to succeed. Automation projects are really interesting creatures. They don't necessarily adhere to the same rules that other digital projects follow, and this is key. In the digital experience world, we've come to accept the edict of start small, launch early, and scale fast. And while it is a useful concept, sometimes for automation, it can be not enough or be a trap that we fall into. When setting the context for conversational collaboration, what we like to do is borrow a concept from rocket science. Rocket scientists planning to send something to space have a very specific goal they know they have to hit no matter what else. It's described as escape velocity. When you're building a rocket that needs to leave Earth's gravitational pull to make it to space, you must hit escape velocity, which, in case you're wondering, is about 40,000 kilometers an hour. If you don't do that, your rocket will be pulled back to Earth, crash and burn, and be deemed a failure. Now, when you're thinking of your conversational experience, you need to define what that escape velocity concept looks like. What is the level of experience for users and level of utility for other stakeholders that needs to be hit to define the project a success? Even if you build something very interesting, unless you reach the automation escape velocity for your project, it's going to be pulled back to the ground, unable to escape the old digital world's gravitational pull. I can give you a very simple example of how you can start thinking about escape velocity. Let's take the well-known, not necessarily well-loved FAQ bots, right? If you're adding an FAQ bot to your digital experiences, often the question is, well, is this better than search? Or shouldn't we just improve the information architecture of the FAQ section of our website? Where is the added value coming from to provide that escape velocity, right? And there's a few things you can do. It might be that the channel you're using is providing that extra value. So you need to highlight that pull it out and say, look, users through this channel cannot access the website. So a bot is actually the best solution. Even better, the value might be coming from the fact that the conversational application is not just another interface over search, but it actually proactively works with the user to help them ask the right question and figure out what the real problem is. Finding that added value will help you define the escape velocity and set the right space for your project to succeed.
So far we've talked about two principles. Principle number one, intent identification and interpretation. Principle number two, creating the space for your conversational application to succeed. And we're now going to talk about principle number three, speaking the same language. Automation projects with their use of artificial intelligence suffer on the terminology front. Like, it's so easy to talk about human-like, about self-learning, about bots that evolve. And as professionals, we don't really help that conversation because we use things like Wizard of Oz testing, happy paths, and other magical creatures. It leaves too much space for imagination to go wild and big unspoken assumptions to creep in. That is why at Open Dialogue, we created a conversational manifesto very early on. It presents 6 core principles around what is the nature and purpose of conversational applications and 6 design principles. Statements such as conversations have a purpose, or conversations are dynamic, non-linear, and multifaceted, or conversations should be safe and private, set the ground for a common language and a vision around the nature of the thing we are going to build. Just like a common set of values help a team to find its path through uncertainty. These conversational values do the same for our conversational projects. You can check out our manifesto by visiting opendialogue.ai/manifesto, but really we encourage you to create your own, and create your own common language with your users and your stakeholders. There's another opportunity for conversational creators to speak the same language, and that is to explore more deeply the common ground between real-world conversations and conversation design. Conversations between humans show immense variation and might seem very complex, but really within all that variation, there are consistent patterns. Scholars of sociology, linguistics, anthropology, and many other disciplines have done a great job and have been studying this for years. The patterns of everyday talk under the banners of conversation analysis, discourse analysis, interactional social linguistics, and other terms. What are really patterns? Patterns identify and describe where there is regularity in a design. They make the design process and the outcomes more predictable. Patterns help us scale our thinking about a complex system through categorization and encapsulation of complex behavior under a simplified label. They provide a shared understanding and a shared language also between a team, from design to development and deployment. We're very excited at Open Dialogue about patterns, and we've been working on a library of conversational patterns that we are super excited about. But none of this could have happened without Joseph Tyler, that has been working with us on this project. So if you want to learn more about those patterns and see all the exciting work we've been doing in this space, you can head over to patterns.opendialogue.ai and check them out.
On to number 4, allowing for context to influence design and influencing the context by design. The whole idea of context is very much an obsession in the open dialogue world, but it's because we've seen the value of properly understanding context time and time again. At the highest level, there is the organizational context within which you're trying to do something. What are the different business units and people involved, and how do they need to interact with each other in order to support the automation of the process? what are the learnings that are already within the organization that can inform the conversational application, and how will learnings be fed back into the organization to ensure that things move forward. Now, the closer we get to the actual implementation, the more we can start talking about conversations to be had with the user, which directly map for us to how the open dialogue model is designed.
So conversations to be had are components of a conversational application that describe what high-level topics a group of people want to discuss in a given context. This could be based on outcomes that our users are looking to achieve, the constraints and opportunities that a business process supports. So, for example, an account linking conversation, or based on known conversational patterns we talked about before, like onboarding conversations, or could be a mixture of both. Conversations to be had is a concept that stems from thinking about content and context before diving into specific natural language understanding frameworks. I like to compare it to a closet in which you can hang your different conversational elements, like, for example, NLU intents. The alternative would be to not have a framework, and then you end up with a pile of elements out of order that might or might not fit together. So why these conversations to be had? It's because they are easy to understand by all parties involved. They are easy to make informed decisions around, as it deals with content and context first. You can do that through activities like card sorting, for example. And finally, they fit nicely with how most organizations already think about their content. So really, it's the ideal framework fit for conversational collaboration.
And this leads nicely to the final point, which is about building trust. Now, trust is one of those hard to pin down concepts. It's not a state or objective that you reach and don't have to worry about anymore. Trust is something you need to work towards every day. I like to think of it like energy, right? Trust naturally dissipates and it needs to be replenished. Again, at the top level, at the first level, there is the trust that the various teams within an organization need to build with each other. Trust that they are all working towards a common goal and will share risks and benefits. And this is particularly important when it comes to projects that are introducing new technologies and have an inherently higher level of risks associated with them. The people involved need to know that they are on a common journey.
So when we take it one level down to the conversation design level, a key concept of conversational application that we often hear about are grounding strategies. They are a core part of not only building trust capital with end users and reassuring them you will get them to a valuable solution, but they're also a business strategy, putting in place a trust capital between conversational professionals and their stakeholders. It helps the stakeholder be reassured that no matter what happens, the user will get to a valuable solution as well. How do you help the user that one step forward if all else fails? What is a valuable business strategy to recover from conversational disaster? Bringing in a circle of trust between engineers, designers, stakeholders, and users is what conversational collaboration is all about.
So there you have it. 5 principles to help your organization develop its conversational collaboration capabilities. Identify and interpret the really valuable intents. Create the right space for your project to succeed. Develop a shared language. Allow for context to influence design and influence the context by design. And build trust. The prize at the end of this process is an organization that can improve and scale the way it interacts, both internally and with the rest of the world. We really believe that moving forward, the next digital differentiator will be between organizations that have scaled their ability to scale conversations through conversational collaboration and those that don't. This is not just a nice to have feature, it's going to be an integral part of what being a modern organization needs to be. So thanks everyone for coming. We look forward to talking with you during the conference.
Absolutely. I hope to see you all during the conference. After this talk, happy to have a chat and geek out about conversation design as usual.
Thank you.